Excellencies, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Juliet Foster, and I would like to welcome you to this panel entitled Global Humanitarianism, Volunteering, Prospects and Aspirations. Thank you so much for being here. Now, I want to open this session by sharing some words written by the former US President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much, it is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Now, there are many people in this world who have very little. According to the World Bank, around 700 million people, or 8.5% of the global population, were living in extreme poverty in 2024, which meant they were surviving on less than $2.15 per day. In today's world, populations are divided by the unequal distribution of wealth, restricted access to health and education services, along with financial and economic exploitation. Conflicts and natural disasters further compound the plight of communities that are inherently vulnerable. Now, against that backdrop, volunteering is a powerful symbol of hope because it delivers immediate relief while facilitating efforts towards long-term recovery and strengthening the resilience of communities. An example of this is where volunteers support disaster preparedness programs, vocational training, and income-generating activities that reduce vulnerability and increase self-sufficiency. By empowering communities to take ownership of their development, volunteers contribute to sustainable and lasting change. Now, according to the United Nations, around 1 billion people are engaged in volunteer work. The value of what they bring to the table is highlighted in the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, which emphasize the importance of inclusive partnerships and community engagement within the framework of global development. In the last 50 years, the number of global crises has increased by a factor of 5, which means there is a greater need than ever for committed and empathetic volunteers. Now, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, volunteerism has enabled KS Relief to pursue an ambitious global humanitarian program, and the results really do speak for themselves. Thanks to its initiatives in 52 countries and the contribution of almost 4,000 volunteers, more than 200,000 surgeries have been completed, which have directly benefited over 2 million people. KS Relief's operations cover more than 12 critical sectors, including key health education projects, all of which aim to improve the lives of vulnerable people and encourage sustainable development. Now, from that brief overview, we can see that volunteering does have a powerful impact, and there is some reassurance in knowing that when disaster strikes, there are selfless individuals who are ready to give their help. And in this session, we're going to hear from governments, humanitarian and international organisations who will explain why volunteering is so impactful, why private-public partnerships are vital in supporting the work of volunteers, how technology is promoting volunteer opportunities while creating innovative solutions to complex issues, and the dangers of volunteering. But before we meet our guests, I would like to welcome Leila Aliyeva. She is of the Heydar Aliyev Foundation, and she's also the founder and head of IDEA, the International Dialogue for Environmental Action. So can you please welcome Leila Aliyeva? The floor is now yours.
Excellencies, dear friends, thank you for the opportunity to speak here. It's a pleasure to be in beautiful Riyadh and to feel the energy of light and kindness. As some of you may know, the Heydar Aliyev Foundation, which has been created more than 20 years ago, implemented many projects in the field of education, culture, environment, science, and healthcare in Azerbaijan and around the world. I would like to mention some of our projects. Azerbaijan, which is a country of multicultural and respect to all religions, has provided humanitarian aid and development assistance to more than 140 countries, including 43 out of 44 least developed countries. In the last 10 years, with the contribution of Azerbaijan, over 575,000 people undertook eye examination in 13 African member states of OIC. Scholarship programs were launched for non-aligned movement and Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC member states. In support of the education, the Heydar Aliyev Foundation has built more than 500 schools, orphanages, kindergartens in Azerbaijan. The Heydar Aliyev Foundation has outdone similar initiatives in such countries as Georgia, Egypt, China, Pakistan, Russia, Romania, Vietnam, and Netherlands. The Heydar Aliyev Foundation has always been active in healthcare and social sectors, not only in Azerbaijan, but also in foreign countries such as South Sudan, Pakistan, Russia, Georgia, Djibouti, and Kenya and Rwanda. We have recently visited Kenya and Rwanda and were really touched by the kindness of people. And we have organized water for some schools and computers, books, and also we have gifted some incubators to the hospitals for premature babies. And I wish we can create more opportunities to people who are able to share more and to understand what they can do to make the life of others better. The foundation has also done the construction of the Emergency Medical Assistance Center in Bosnia and Herzegovina, charitable initiatives as the Thalassemia Center in Pakistan, construction of the dormitory for visually impaired children at the Roman Catholic Center in Hungary, and the reconstruction of the Center for Children and Youth with Impaired Vision in Bosnia and Herzegovina. For years, the Heydar Aliyev Foundation is working on the reconstructions of mosques and historical monuments. Together with ISESCO, we are starting an education program in Burkina Faso and other African countries. During the UN Climate Change Conference, COP29, held in Azerbaijan, the Heydar Aliyev Foundation has implemented numerous projects to combat the climate change, such as tree planting initiatives and the establishment of new parks and reserves, as well as organizing of the youth at the forefront of climate action conference within the framework of COP29. During that time, our volunteers did an amazing job. At the IDEA International Dialogue for Environmental Action, which has been created in 2011, we implement many projects in Azerbaijan and around the world to protect the forests, water resources, and the wildlife. Some of our projects include planting 4 million trees, protecting the endangered species of animals, educating children and students about the environment, organizing exhibitions, making documentaries. One of our most important projects is called One Drop, is to reduce the water waste and to show how every drop of water can affect someone's life. And I think this is something each one of us has to remember on a daily basis. Dear friends, as we're speaking here today, millions of people around the world are suffering from hunger. And yet, so much food is being thrown away and wasted. 28% of the world's agriculture area is used annually to produce food that is lost and wasted. 3 million children and 9 million people in total die every year from hunger. This is something we should remember every time we sit down at a table to eat. Last time when I visited Riyadh and I was introduced to the incredible work the King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center is doing for those who are in need and less privileged. And I was so touched and amazed, and I would like to deeply thank you for this work. And I hope in the future we can do more together. The true desire of every soul is to share. And when we don't share enough, we suffer, no matter where we are and what we have. I believe that it is very important to start with children, the way we treat them and the way we educate them. Children should be brought up with a huge amount of love, respect, appreciation, and understanding. And that way we can bring up a generation that is strong enough, confident enough, kind and brave enough, and ensure that they will take good care of our world and understand how everything and everyone is connected. And the only way to be happy is to ensure the happiness of others. Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It's a great pleasure. I wish you all health, love, and happiness. Bless you. Thank you. Yes.
Stay, because there is one question which I'd like to ask you, because look, you outlined all of the programs that you're involved with in the foundation, and obviously you need lots of volunteers to make these dreams, these aspirations happen. So my question to you is, what are the good qualities that, in your opinion, a volunteer will need?
We have a very good practice working with volunteers. We plant trees together with volunteers. Now 7,000 volunteers has joined our coastal cleanups campaign. So we collected 120 tons of plastic and gill nets on the beaches. And I think every person has good qualities to be a volunteer. It's good to give them opportunity, and once you realize how amazing it is to help others, and that it's the best feeling in the world, you can never go back. Yes.
That's fantastic. Look,
yes.
Thank you so much. Please show your appreciation to Lele Aliyev.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful, thank you very much. And that's a really good note, in fact, on which to end that speech and to segue into the next section, which is a video film, because at the end of the day, volunteering is about doing the right thing. It's not about the individual, it's about helping many individuals, okay? And it takes a certain type of personality to do that, but the results are absolutely astonishing. And that's what we're going to find out about in this short film, which will explain more about the subject.
7 أعوام مرت منذ انطلقت حملتنا التطوعية الأولى، مسيرة بدأت بإيمان كبير أن الإنسانية تنتظر منا الكثير. انطلقنا بشغف وتفاني، نحمل في قلوبنا نبضا إنسانيا بحجم الكون.
المواقف الإنسانية التي شاهدناها وسوف نشاهدها ترسم صورة إنسانية لدى كل أسرة. جهد من متطوعين ومتطوعات من الكوادر السعودية المؤهلة، رسمنا ابتسامة أمل للإنسانية.
أصبحنا عائلة كبيرة، انضم إلينا أكثر من 75,000 متطوع، ولا تزال عائلتنا في ازدياد.
هذا واجب، هذه قدرة، هذه نعمة، هذا علم، هذه مهارة، هذه خبرة ربنا أعطاك إياها. فين زكاتك؟
وصلنا إلى 52 بلدا، أنجزنا أكثر من 860 برنامجا تطوعيا حتى الآن، أجرينا أكثر من 209,000 عملية جراحية نوعية، واستفاد من حملاتنا التطوعية أكثر من 2,86,000 إنسان. هل تعبنا؟ بالطبع لا، لأن وقود همتنا دعوات المحتاجين وردود أفعالهم. لسنا مجرد متطوعين، بل مشاريع حياة وبرامج أمل إنسانية. صنعنا قصص نجاح وغيرنا حياة مجتمعات، أنعشنا النبض في القلوب المتعبة، وزرعنا الأمل في الأرواح، وفي كل مكان زرناه نصنع أثرا. هل انتهت مهمتنا إذن؟ إنها مجرد بداية، ولكل بداية حكاية، ولنا في كل يوم وكل مكان أثر وحكاية.
Two things I would like to add. Congratulations to the team that made that film. Thank you to all the contributors. And if you ever want to know why people volunteer, I think that film answered your question. Let's now turn to the first of our panels, which explores the theme, the importance of integrating volunteering into global humanitarian interventions. Can you please welcome our panelists? First up, His Excellency Dr. Abdullah A. Arabiya, Advisor to the Royal Court and Supervisor General of King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Centre. Dr. Arabiya, welcome. And let's continue the welcome. Please join me on the stage, His Excellency Dr. Kassan Baheba, Minister of Public Health and Population in the Government of Yemen. Please join us. Please keep the welcome going for Her Excellency Nancy Ossi, who's the President and CEO of IMC, that is International Medical Corps. Please join us. And can I say it's good to see you again as well? Please welcome His Excellency Dr. Hassan Bakle, who is the President of the Syrian Red Crescent. Please join us, sir. And please extend the welcome to our final panellist, Her Excellency Marianne Horn, Senior Humanitarian Advisor for Crises and Emergencies. Marianne, please come and join us. Okay, so whilst we get ourselves ready, let's talk about this panel discussion. It's going to be divided into several themes. I suddenly realised that you couldn't hear me, but I think you can now. So we're going to have quite a few themes which we'll be discussing. I'm going to flag them up. So it's a way of actually moving the conversation along because, as you can appreciate, it is a very big subject. And of course, somebody has to start first. And Dr. Arabiya, it is you. I'm so sorry, my microphone seems to have a mind of its own. But look, let's talk about KS Relief and its volunteer programs. What I want to know is, how do you utilise those programs? And why do you feel that they're so important to the overall effectiveness of humanitarian situations all over the world?
Thank you. Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you, Juliet. Again, good afternoon. Maybe some of you are already fed up with me, so you have to bear with me for this very important session. But if you allow me, Juliet, and my colleagues, panelists, we have some of the valuable volunteers here with us. Can we applaud them now? So the makers of the film that you have complimented are sitting with us, and they have to be appreciated. But going back to your question, honestly, volunteering is something that doesn't come just because KS Relief wants it. It's something within the genetics of people. There are people who have the love to devote their science, their work, their life to help those who are in need. And this is the volunteers. Volunteers are a spectrum of valuable people who have devoted their life to help others. And that's why KS Relief, as you have heard in the film, 7 years ago, was charged by His Majesty King Salman, the custodian of the two holy mosques, to be responsible for the volunteering or humanitarian volunteering abroad. And when that charge came to us, there was a story about it, and you have to listen to me. Some doctors came to me and said, we want to help many patients in poor countries, and we need an avenue to do it, going through the system, going through the international humanitarian law, going through the access that will allow us to do the maximum. And that has created the story. So we started initially with a pilot of many health convoys to very disabled countries, and then we got the success. Then we said, well, what are we gaining when we have done them? We have seen we are not only delivering aid and health and also helping patients, we are doing more than that. Number one, we are actually training local health workers, or actually health, engineering, agriculture, education, you name it. So there is a capacity building. Number two, there is a transfer of the know-how to the countries. Number three, there is building communication between those volunteers and the beneficiary communities, and that communication will continue for years and decades. So that goes with the SDGs. So those valuables drove KS Relief to expand the work. So we started with a handful, then we moved to double it, and then today we have reached, as you have seen, 876. This year alone, 2025, and correct me, my colleagues, if I'm wrong, we are doing 650 volunteer convoys in 1 year, which is 2 convoys a day. That's a lot. And as you have seen in our website, which is actually digital, we have actually opened it for volunteers. We have, as you have seen, 76,000 volunteers. Our problem, Juliet, is not actually the number. Our problem, we don't have enough programs to satisfy the volunteers. So in answering your question, if we actually expand, now we're talking about funding gap, and I can show you with economics that the best economic value for your money is volunteering. And I'll give you an example. I took a long time, but you have to listen to this. For example, we have some of our colleagues in front of me who have done the first ever cochlear implant for refugees. And we have been challenged by many international colleagues that you cannot do cochlear implant for refugees. We have done it. We started with 1, 2. Now we are doing 1,000 for those who have suffered from the earthquake in Syria. The cost of a cochlear implant in a civilian settings is 5 times the cost when volunteers do it. This is, for me, is a success. So economical, empowerment, trust and partnership, and I think it is the best resource mobilization, and I'm a strong believer that volunteering will have a long-lasting impact that will inspire a change in recipient communities. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly the numbers speak for themselves, but also I was quite heartened by the fact that you said the problem we've got is that we've got too many people wanting to volunteer effectively, but what a great problem to have. But Dr. Kassem Baheba, I mean, when you have volunteers, it's great that you've got their goodwill and their determination, but how do you think that integrating them into medical response teams actually enhances the effectiveness of global humanitarian interventions? How do they boost it, particularly when you're trying to improve access to healthcare for populations which are marginalized because they're unlucky enough to live in an area where there is a crisis?
Okay,
Thank you.
You can both answer if you want to. I wanted to put to Dr. Kassem Baheba, but I mean, please do both go for it if you wish.
Thank you for this. Usually volunteer play a very important role, not only in response to emergency, but also even during crisis or in the countries like Yemen, where there is difficulty to reach to out of reach and to rural areas. The community volunteers play an important role, especially when these volunteers comes from these communities. When volunteers come from the community, there is strong trust in them, and usually we have around now about 22,000 of community volunteers in the health and nutrition, all of them were female, and usually they are good in build strong relationship with families, and they are playing role, very important role in primary healthcare service, in vaccination, in detection of malnutrition, in women and health. So they are playing very important role because they are from the community. They understand the community need. They understand the barriers the community against some sensitive areas, so they can build strong relationship. So these volunteers play a very important role, and we think support for this will advance for the health system in countries during crisis or during difficulty to reach to all the countries.
And Dr. Bakle, would you like to add to that at all? Because the key to this is trust. If you have that trust, you can achieve so much once you integrate people into the health systems.
You wanted to speak about volunteers and health.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. When we're speaking about disaster, there is two kinds of disasters. Natural disaster, which happens suddenly and finish in a minute, and everybody respond for it, or war. War is different. In war, you can find the disaster in a very big geographic area with many spots. And at the same time, you know, every disaster has three periods: preparing, respond, and recovery. And in war, you find the three stages at the same time. In each area, it's different. Some areas finished and recovery. Some area will start. You must repair. If we are speaking about volunteers in this situation, we are speaking about another kind of volunteers who are working under very bad circumstances and under danger. If I want to speak about Sinan Arab Crescent, the volunteers started during the demonstrations by the first aid teams. They tried to give first aid services in the same place of demonstrations. After that, we moved to the other areas. We started with mobile clinics. We sent it to some rural of the cities to give medical services by volunteers. Also established mobile teams. The difference between them that mobile teams, they are doctor in a car, they need a house, small house to work from, and mobile team, they work from a mobile clinic from the same vehicle. Also we started with medical points for areas which was under fire. After that, these areas became besieged. So in these areas, they did minor surgery, sometimes heart surgery, if we can say it. We lost in this thing about 66 volunteers they killed during their work. They were under duty. A lot injured, many arrested. We lost many in prison. So this is the other kind of voluntary working in disaster, war disaster. Thank you.
It's the risk you carry, and this is something which we're going to look at as well as we progress this conversation. But let me broaden it out, because what I want to do now is to look at the impact of global volunteer programs on community resilience. And Nancy Ossie, I want to bring you in at this point. And from your perspective, how do you think global volunteers can actually strengthen humanitarian aid, and how can organisations like yours better leverage volunteers for greater impact, especially, according to where you're going to use them, there is danger, as was pointed out.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
We are working under the 7 principles of the movement. One of them is working in danger.
Right.
Sorry?
Sorry, can I just jump in for one moment? I'm putting that question to Nancy Ossie, but I will ask you a question in a few moments. So if you can just bear with me. So Nancy, could you take that question, looking specifically at your organisation?
Sure. Well, I have to say first, congratulations on Cancer Relief's 10-year anniversary. And International Medical Corps, it's our 10-year anniversary working with you. So, but when I was watching the video, I was reminded of how I first got started with International Medical Corps and what drew me to the organization 40 years ago. And that was the passion and the dedication of the individuals I met, all of who were volunteers. It was a beginning of our organization. It was a startup, grassroots level, dedicated doctors and nurses who not only were just courageous, but just completely selfless when it came to wanting to help people in conflict areas. So we started working in Afghanistan, to your point about conflict areas. And one of the things that our early volunteers learned, and our founder, Dr. Bob Simon, learned, was that no matter how many dedicated health professionals we sent inside Afghanistan to treat families, women and children who didn't otherwise have health care, there was a limited impact that they could have if they weren't part of a community, some kind of an infrastructure that existed that they could plug into. And second, there was only so much one individual or two or three could do. And so they started training local medics in Afghanistan to take care of people in their own communities. To your point about leveraging, so the leverage really comes through the knowledge and the skills transfer. It comes through teaching and working with local communities and giving them the opportunity to help in their own communities so that they have a stake in what is happening there.
And there's
they also
empowerment as well.
understand, pardon me?
There's empowerment as well.
It's empowerment, it's hope, it's anytime, people who live in a community, a village, a neighborhood, just sort of like in our own lives, we know what's best in our own areas. And we know the culture, we understand the issues, we understand the challenges. And so really volunteers are best leveraged when they plug into an understanding of what those community needs are. So in our case, International Medical Corps, we started setting up kind of an infrastructure so that we would have people long-term, and then volunteers with very specific skill sets could come in and lend their expertise. And I was thinking about what Dr. El-Rabi said about the implants, or I was thinking about the conjoined twins and the volunteers that have this special knowledge that you just couldn't have full-time. And so when a volunteer, whether it be an orthopedic surgeon or an epidemiologist, or just as I see in our volunteers in Gaza, special surgical skills, when they have the opportunity to join an organization, not worry about how to get there, what they do once they get there and everything. The community trust is already built in, and that they can just go to work. That is really the best leverage. And that also includes the community volunteers as well that continue throughout whatever is happening at that time.
And Dr. Hazem Bakri, I mean, look, you talked about what people are doing, the volunteers are doing in Syria, but at all different levels, etc., but also the dangers, the fact that sadly there has been a loss of life. Some people have been imprisoned or disappeared. But when people are working, are they two-track in the sense that they are dealing with a situation immediately in the health arena, but in responding to a situation, they are also looking to face long-term health challenges? So do you have that dual thinking?
As I told you before, we are working all circumstances. In the first period, it was responding, it was very dangerous for our volunteers. Now, maybe we left this period to the recovery. Also in recovery period, our volunteers are working from A to Z. That's mean we're receiving all now the assistance coming to Syria. I will give you an example, our work with King Salman Center. We have a MOU with them, Ministry of Understanding. So we receive the trucks or the airplanes from the borders from the airport. We facilitate their visas. Also for the custom thing, also we are ready for that. And if materials coming to the Ministry of Health, we deliver directly. But if it is for beneficiaries, we send it to the people. Why everybody want to work with SARC? Because SARC, Syria is 14 governorate. We are in this governorate like 14 branches. We have sub-branches, we have points. All the volunteers are from the same areas. So we depend on them in deliver the assistance directly to the beneficiaries. So from A to Z, we are working in this field now. now there is no danger on their lives. So now it's other issues.
Okay. And Marianne Horn, I mean, the big word which has come up is trust, that volunteers can go in, they don't bring any political baggage or anything like that. What they bring into a situation is a desire to help. But apart from that trust, what else is it that they bring to the table that will help larger aid organisations? In other words, the essential ingredient they might lack, but the volunteers make up for that.
I think a few points have been made about the fact that we're looking at volunteers in terms of the impact that they have. They are there as part of the communities before, during, and after. They have the trust, they have the knowledge, they have the data, they have the understanding, really, of what goes on. But as such, volunteers are also force multipliers. A lot of international organizations will rely on a volunteer base to be able to work in a sustainable way, in a financially also economically beneficial way, to be able to multiply what is being done in one area or another. So I think years ago we would talk about volunteer networks as something which was quite new. Today they are part and parcel.
Kind of separated them really from the main aid bodies, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And really to see the impact today, absolutely transformational in this relationship, which is also based on respect, dignity, understanding of the cultural or other norms that there are in these countries. So the impact that they bring, the transformational impact, but also the fact that they are really force multipliers and increasingly relied on in every single aspect of humanitarian action.
Given what they do, it almost seems unfair to call them volunteers, because there's almost a very superficial understanding of volunteering. For the life of me, I can't think of a word that really encapsulates everything, an alternative. Maybe that's the challenge for the panel or something, I don't know. We'll come up with that for another day. But force multiplier, that's a really powerful way of expressing it. But let's move things on and broaden it out, because I talked about partnerships in my introduction. What I want to do is to focus on building strong partnerships for effective global volunteers and the humanitarian response, which is where you, Dr. Al-Rabia, come into it. Because from your perspective, how do you think that different organisations and indeed governments can work together to make these strong partnerships so that they actually do what they're supposed to do? In other words, improve global volunteer efforts in emergencies and really empowering people. What are the key ingredients then to have an effective partnership?
It's a good question. I think when you want to have a successful volunteering program, you have, first of all, to have a partnership. So you cannot just go and enter a country or a community and just imagine that you will do volunteering. I think, first of all, the proper communication that starts within the organization that is setting up, for example, the volunteering. Also, the volunteers themselves. Some of them are the first-time volunteers. Also, you have to have recipes to give them some of the guidelines, and they should have the basics of international humanitarian law and some of the basic guidelines. Some of them have not been working in a very primitive communities or some disabled communities. So all of those have to be delivered. Now, when it goes outside, I think volunteering is something that needs actually the partnership between organizations, partnership between governments. You cannot just go, as you have heard from my colleague, Minister of Health of Yemen, that you cannot just go and enter the hospital and operate so what we do in case relief, to start with, we start with a communication between organizations, between government agencies through the proper channels. And then we start what we call the pilot visit. For example, I'm sure if you ask the volunteers here, they will not just go and do the most complex surgery or the most complex things without a pilot visit to assess, to see the circumstances. After that, you do a pilot convoy where you see the successes, then you expand. One also very important issue is you have to also to protect those volunteers. It will be a tragedy to lose those volunteers who have devoted their lives to save others. So that's why it is the duty of this communication and partnership to ensure that there is safety, protection, and you have to have logistics needs for those volunteers. All of those are prerequisites for a successful outcome. And that's why we managed to work in 52 countries, because we do the due diligence and we build the partnerships between NGOs, between government agencies. We connect before we assess, and then once we succeed, we expand. These are very essential for successful outcome. If I want to leave with a recommendation, I think volunteering has not received the international standards that we need. It's done by agencies, but I think there is a time where we need to have lessons to be delivered globally so that there will be standards and guidelines for volunteers to work in a larger scale than what we do now.
That's a very good point, because I can't remember what the figure is, Marianne, because we talked about it yesterday, in fact, but there were over 300 volunteers that died last year, and that was the highest fatality rate, I believe.
Yeah, and I think this is a good point to make, is really the role of volunteers, particularly in crises and emergencies, is inextricably linked to the ability to protect the humanitarian space. We have seen 2024 as the deadliest year on record, with 281 humanitarian workers having lost their lives and hundreds injured across mostly the Middle East and Africa. Now, of those 281, a vast majority were volunteers, first responders, from ambulance drivers to paramedics. Spoke this morning with colleagues in Beirut, but this is something that comes back again and again, and it is a privilege to have so many members of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement here in the forum, because the ability to protect that humanitarian space and the symbols of a red vest, an ambulance logo, etc., is something that states, donors, governments, but also as international humanitarian organizations and volunteer-based networks, we need to get together and really advocate for a stronger protection for those who save lives on the front lines.
Absolutely, and putting their own lives there and potentially losing them. But let me bring you into the conversation, Dr. Baheba, because I want to focus on really strategies, because what you're trying to do is to better integrate volunteers into the humanitarian response and relief efforts. And when you're dealing with different agencies, be it local communities, international governments, and donors, there has to be a strategy that somehow you can navigate and which takes you towards the end goal. Is there a best practice in this? What works for you?
Yes, I think it need to work on how to put policy and mechanism for these volunteers, how they are working, even with the local authority, and how they are working. As Dr. Rabia said, there should be clear guidelines about volunteer action and how they can put mechanism for their working, even at the national level, how we can improve their skills and how we can improve by more working and capacity building and not to lose them. Because one of the problems, you are working in volunteer network and sometimes many of them lose. How you can get ready in case of any emergency or in case of any response, how you can get this network activated and they are working and things. And also how you can foster partnership with international and local NGO and international and with the same volunteer. And also the volunteer come, as Dr. Rabia said, we have many volunteers come by like program supported by King Salman Relief. How we can them transport all these skills and those education to the local staff, how they can improve and how they can continue follow up of these patients or of these people, how not just get temporary relief and then disappear. How you should have something on the ground who work in this. So I think by this mechanism, clear mechanism, work on it, it can improve of these volunteers' action.
And let's stay with the theme of strategies, Nancy, because when we had the first panel, in fact, I believe, in fact, it was Dr. Arabia who said this, that we have to learn from the past to actually build a better future in terms of the humanitarian response. And taking the theme of the past, what are the key lessons the International Medical Corps has learned in crisis settings about integrating volunteer programs so that they blend in smoothly into the humanitarian response?
Well, something going back to what Dr. Rabia said, I call it the matchmaking process at the very beginning. It's really important. When a person is interested, even if they've been to various countries, every situation is different, and it's really important in addition to making sure they've got the right skill set and qualifications, et cetera. It's really important that they have the best sense of what it is they're getting into, especially in conflict areas. Like I think of some of our volunteers recently, a very successful experience was a volunteer that went to Gaza when we set up our hospital there, and he had volunteered with us in Ukraine, but Ukraine is different than Gaza. Another nurse volunteer had volunteered with us during COVID, but again, every situation is different, so it's really on us as an organization to be sure that we communicate clearly what to expect as best as we can when we get there. As far as some of the lessons learned that we bring, when an organization has an established presence, and as Dr. Rabia said, you can't just walk into a hospital and go to work anywhere else you would. This is where an organization's presence is important, because when a group has the local trust and the buy-in of the community, and they understand the lay of the land, they understand the needs of the community, then a volunteer with their expertise can come in and essentially go to work. And the lessons learned really come from, in many ways, the things that you learn in the community. Because every single time we start in a new area, we're learning something new. So we constantly, and we call it on continuous learning every single hour, it seems, because as many things as we have experienced as an organization around the world, International Medical Corps is working in about 30 countries now, but many others beyond prior to that. We learn something new every time. And not only that, many of the environments that we're in change every month. And so it's upon us to understand as much as we can what it is the needs are, so that when a volunteer comes in, they're learning from our lessons learned that we've learned already, and they're also
like a legacy chain, isn't it?
Pardon me?
A legacy chain of knowledge.
Yes, well, and also they bring their own experiences. Some have had no experience in an international environment outside their own country. Others have been to other countries, but it's very different. So they also bring with them some expectations sometimes, but also, knowledge in a worldly sense of some of the things that they have encountered in other countries. So it's an addition. But it really, we do a lot of work around emergency response, and that initial surge capacity, it's really tough, it's really dangerous, and it's really intense. And so when our volunteers first come in, some of the things that we most look for are that flexibility. When we were setting up this field hospital in Gaza, some of the supplies came in late. We had to get the hospital standing. It was a mobile hospital. So we had a nurse putting the thing together because, we needed the extra help. So it kind of requires a personality that is willing to do anything, despite what they might be expecting to do when they go in. And so this is one of the things that we've learned about people, is that regardless of whatever the skills are, whatever the experience is, whatever the motivation, what is most important in an individual is that they have the ability to adapt and change and be flexible, and that whatever we tell them to expect when they get there, they should expect something very different. And they are the ones that are most likely to succeed, and that's what we've learned.
Okay, so you're watching them grow, actually, as well.
We're watching them grow, and they always, the ones who arrive, it's really interesting when you hear some of the stories, and we honor a volunteer every year at our annual event, but it's fascinating to hear their stories, because they'll talk about, I thought I was going to do this, I was told I was going to do that, and then I get there and I'm not doing any of that. Because things have since changed. Yeah. And those are the people who succeed the most because they kind of go in there expecting that it won't be what they think it's going to be.
Dr. Hazem Bakle, just looking at what's happening in Syria, obviously Syria has been making the news for a lot of reasons, but in terms of what the Red Crescent is doing, what are the strategies you're using to enhance volunteer engagement within Syria's humanitarian response, because obviously every theatre of conflict is different, and how do you think that these efforts are actually improving the overall effectiveness of relief initiatives? Because from the perspective of the outsiders looking in, when we saw the coverage of the Syrian war in the UK, in Europe, what we saw was a system, a health system, which was on its knees, and yet somehow it kept going. The point that I'm getting at is that the relief initiatives were not just there for the war. Even though the shooting has stopped, it is still ongoing.
Now we are working for the infrastructure. You know, many people will return to Syria now from Jordan, from Lebanon, from Turkey, also from Idlib camps. They must return to their houses. They must find at least something life condition, like water and sanitation, primary health care, schools, electricity, vaccination. So now we are trying to work in this field. All our resources now are going to nearly destroyed areas. We can't work in an area which fully destroyed, but if it can be better, I think we can do something. A lot of organizations are coming now to SARC to be like a partner. We are asking them to not to everybody work the same thing and the same place. So now we are trying to make a map. Every organization can take a piece of this puzzle, and at the end of the day, you can find all the pieces are completed. So now this is our role as SARC. We have about 15,000 volunteers and 5,000 staff. They are working now in this field.
15,000 volunteers?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a good figure to actually register in the mind. I mean, Marion, I saw you taking some notes as well when you were listening to Dr. Bakle. I mean, what would you like to add to that?
I think, as Doctor has pointed out, the Red Cross and the Red Crescent movement is de facto the largest humanitarian network in the world because it has overall 16 million volunteers across the world. And as a network, one of really the value adds is that, may it be in Syria, may it be in Jordan, may it be in Afghanistan, there is a community of professionals who can come together through that network of volunteering. So when, for example, in Jordan or in some of the most affected conflict areas, there is a need on specific issues. It's a network where national societies between themselves, volunteers between themselves, peer-to-peer professionals will come together and share that knowledge without any commercial interest, without any of the complicating factors we see elsewhere. And that network, we spoke of knowledge, of being able really to share and help each other in a spirit of humanitarian impact is one that is very strong, both within Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, but also within the volunteer networks across the world, and that is often not recognized because of those second and third order transformative effect. So a very potent set of skills there to draw.
I think we need to have more conversations like this, actually, just to really give out that recognition, because you're all absolutely correct. The word volunteer, it does sound very casual, but there is so much that it entails. And of course, there are the risks, but the long term, as we saw in the film, just giving people hope, giving people the chance to actually rebuild their lives. But I want to close out now and give the final word to Dr. Arubia, because look, I want to look again into the future. We did that this morning, so let's look at the future again at the close of play for the day. What do you see as the most inspiring examples of volunteer efforts that are really making a big difference in the many humanitarian crises that we've witnessed? And how do you think we can build on these successes moving forward? In some ways, it's a rather unfortunate question to have to ask, because that means that we have to brace ourselves for more conflicts, whether we like it or not.
Well, thank you, Juliet. Very good question. Let me, before I answer a question, thank the governments of Yemen and Syria. And I mean what I say. They have been actually very well organized to set up the grounds for a successful volunteering program. Recently, when we went to Damascus, both the Ministry of Health and the Red Crescent were open to us. They actually allowed the assessment teams to visit all the health facilities and to set up together a priority. This is a good partnership where it stands. Now, going about now the future, and I think I am very optimistic about volunteering. It's actually the best investment if we want to talk about the future, if we want to capitalize the impact of our work when we address humanitarian crisis. I think volunteering has a very strong future for us. It's the most viable from the economic point of view. But let me stimulate the audience. I think there are many also future opportunistic and future goals that we should achieve. I think we have very good chance to be creative in volunteering. And creativity in volunteering is to look how we capitalize on this visit. These are a group of volunteers coming for several days, and they have devoted the full productivity, and I mean it. I am a doctor. I know how many operations can be done in a day in a civilian setting. Double that number in a volunteering, because there is a passion and there is dedication, so there is a productivity. So with this productivity, if we couple it with actually innovation, researchers in actually crisis, when there is a challenge, this is the best atmosphere to create research, to develop the outcome of volunteering. So I'm very optimistic, and I think the future is open. And if you look at KS Relief, we double each year, and that's a story of success. I wish next year will you hear from us that our also partners has doubled or tripled, and this number 600, and watch me, it will be probably in 3 or 4 digits in the near future. Thank you.
Watch this space, in other words. There we're going to have to close it. But can I please say thank you, a huge thank you, in fact, to our panel for sharing their thoughts and their experiences, and also as well to the volunteers who took part in that film and to the volunteers who are here. Please applaud them, but also don't forget to applaud the panel as well. Thank you so much. And that brings this session to a close on the first day, in fact, of the Riyadh International Humanitarian Forum. But of course, there'll be more discussions tomorrow. But thank you so much for your attendance, and thank you, panel, for your incredible insights and for making the time to be here. Thank you.